Thanks so much for coming, everyone. We might get underway. There's a few people still to arrive, but we might get started anyway. Welcome to everyone who's come here today, and also welcome to the people that are listening through webinar. Hopefully you can hear me okay. It's great to see so many people here from so many different local government areas. I'm Lauren Nimmo. I work at Raw Life Saving. I manage all of our health promotion and research projects. Greg Tate, who will be coming in a little bit later, he'll be coming in to speak about our barrier inspection programs. We've got Eddie Gibbs up the back, who some of you may know. Eddie's one of our senior safety risk assessors and conducts a lot of our home pool inspections on behalf of Raw Life Saving. So he's here to answer any technical type questions that you might have. I'm not well versed in that, so he's here to save the day. And we've also got Martin Roddis down the front as well, who some of you might know from the Building Commission, who's also here to speak to you today about a couple of the recent changes to the Australian standards and some of the new rules for pools. This workshop today is being run in partnership with the Injury Control Council of WA as part of their No Injury program. You can see the girls up the back from ICWA who are manning the webinar for those that are listening in and have also organised the whole day. So thank you very much to all of them. As most of you have found, there's tea and coffee. We've fixed the coffee machine, so that's good to go. So feel free to get up at any point over the next hour and a half if you need a drink or something to eat. That's not a good noise. There we go. So I thought I'd first just start a bit of an overview of what we're going to be looking at today. Can people at the back see the screen, or would you like me to turn the lights off at the front? It's okay. I'll take no noise is good. As we all know, home swimming pools are really an integral part of our culture here in Australia. And in the Perth metro area, we actually have the highest proportion of home pools of any capital city in Australia. We have an estimated 145,000 pools and around 6,000 to 8,000 new pools are constructed each year. They're obviously an enjoyable source of recreation and provide a bit of relief from the hot weather that we have here. And while they're generally safe, unfortunately, we do see drowning and injury as a common happening at our home pools. But I guess the good news is that majority of these incidents are preventable. And this is why you guys as pool barrier inspectors play such an integral role in ensuring that these home swimming pools remain safe for our communities to enjoy. Hopefully this session will be useful for you guys and will give you some new information that you might be able to use while you're out doing your pool inspections. As you can see, we've got a couple. I'm going to be speaking for most of the first session. Then we'll have a time for questions and a break. Then we'll get Martin up and we'll progress through to Greg Tate later this afternoon. So we wanted to, since we've got you all in the same place at the same time, we thought it would be a really good opportunity to just explore some of the, I guess, aspects of the pool inspection programs to try and identify what's working well, identify some current challenges that you might be facing, whether it's through the administration program up front, actually delivering the pool inspections or engaging with stakeholders. So you can see on your desk you've got some post-it notes and a pen, and we'd really encourage you to write down your thoughts throughout the presentations this afternoon and stick them on the notes, I guess, at the back. We're really focusing on how we engage with the homeowner. So how do we currently engage with the homeowners during the inspections, before and after the inspections, and how can we better engage? What are some of the challenges that you guys face? And maybe if you've got some ideas or solutions on how that can be improved. The second area is making sure that we're conducting quality inspection programs. So how can we actually improve the delivery of these inspections? And the last one is around stakeholder engagement. So it's obviously really important that everyone is coordinated in their approach towards these types of programs. And I guess we're just looking for ideas on how we achieve this. So whether it's from a local council point of view, from Raw Life Saving or another body, Building Commission, what needs to happen? Is there more support that's needed in certain areas from these groups to make sure that what we're doing is effective? I wanted to start off with a video and hopefully it will work. It is a little bit confronting, but it has a really important message, and it's often a good way to frame, I guess, the reason why we're doing programs such as pool inspections and a lot of our water safety and drowning prevention programs. It's the story of one of our ambassadors, Mark Gabani, whose daughter drowned in a home swimming pool. So I'll just play it for you. It's just a couple of minutes. Oh, of course.
People just ask what happened, and I just say, I don't know. And all I know is that she was left unattended at a friend's swimming pool. And she drowned from there. To this day, we don't know how it happened. The other little girl was found clinging to a pole next to the pool, hanging on. She couldn't swim. I often think that little girl got into trouble and cut and hit to the edge and maybe got exhausted or pushed down, I don't know. The phone rang and Caitlin's mum had said that the phone was hard to breathe and was going through the hospital. They were going to take her up to ICU for the night and see how she went. It wasn't long after that the doctor came back in and said that they were losing Caitlin. So we went back in and said Caitlin was there she had wires and tubes and that. And there was just nurses and doctors everywhere. I just remember them just all stepping back away from the table and there was Caitlin. As I said, she didn't make it. It's like it doesn't sink in. And I just remember, not even asking. I didn't even need to ask. She's mine. And just picking her up. The seat was still warm, and it's like this isn't happening. It's not happening. Yeah, it was happening, and yeah. I mean, the message to parents and anybody that's caring for a child, and we'll go to toddlers because that's what we're talking about, is you can fence the pool, you can have all that, you can familiarise your little one with water skills, you can learn resuscitation. The thing is about keep watch, it's about constant adult supervision, and nothing will replace that. And I just keep saying it because that's the one thing that'll keep our little people alive when they get into strife in the body water. There's going to be mums and dads that are going to watch this. Sorry. And they're going to be sitting there at the table tonight or at the breakfast in the morning, and they're going to have some kids, and there's not going to be a vacant chair because they took on board what Royal Life Saving Society is saying with their Keep Watch campaign. Unfortunately, there is going to be families that are going to have an empty chair because they didn't. And it's like, you hear of a mum and they go, oh, my little one went to the grandparents for the week and I missed them so much. You imagine if that's for life. That's how important it is.
So, like I said, obviously quite a moving sort of video. Mark has been our ambassador for drowning prevention in WA since his daughter drowned in 1999, and does some amazing work going out to the community. But I like to show that video just because it really hits home, I think. We can talk about statistics, we can talk about numbers till we go blue in the face, which I will do in a few seconds. But it's the people that are behind these statistics that are really important, and makes what we're doing, not just in toddler drowning prevention specifically, but around home swimming pools and making sure that they're safe, particularly for families that have young children, even more important. So thank you for letting me share that with you. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about statistics a little bit, just around some drowning stats that we see here in WA, and then actually go through specifically for home swimming pools what we're seeing there. As the video highlights, drowning is a significant issue here in WA. A recent report that was published the other week by the Department of Health and Curtin University found that the mean cost of drowning, based on data in 2012, was $1.3 million per drowning incident, both fatal and non-fatal. It was also noted that this was considerably higher than any other injury event due to the high proportion of drowning events being fatal. Over the past 5 years, we've seen 211 people drown in WA. So when you think of the fact that for each of those drowning deaths, it costs $1.3 million, it's a significant burden on the WA community. As you can see from the graph, the blue parts are the drowning deaths. It's remained fairly steady over the last couple of years, apart from 2012-13, where we saw quite a big spike in drowning deaths. But when we actually take into account the rate of population change, we have actually seen quite a big decrease in the rate of drowning here in Western Australia. Compared to over east, we've actually seen greater reductions than most of the other states, which is really pleasing. If we look at a national level, over the past 10 years, we have the fourth highest rate of drowning behind the Northern Territory, Tasmania and Queensland. In the Northern Territory and Tasmania, we don't typically see a large number of drowning deaths, but in terms of the rate per head of population, they record the highest, and Queensland is the third. It's important to remember that the burden of drowning is much greater than just those that die. Over the past 5 years, we've also seen 673 people hospitalised following a non-fatal drowning incident, and many of these people are faced with long-term health outcomes as the result of brain or spinal cord injury. So what this means is that for every person that drowns in WA, 3 are hospitalised following a non-fatal. So when you look at those numbers together, it's almost 700 people that have been affected by drowning over the last 10 years in WA, which is quite a large number. If we look specifically at home pool drowning, there's been 50 drowning deaths recorded in home swimming pools in WA over the last 10 years, and 304 people that have been hospitalised following a non-fatal drowning incident. So ensuring that these locations remain safe, particularly given how many families with young children have home swimming pools, is pivotal to reducing the burden of drowning. As you can see on the graph, the groups at highest risk, toddlers aged 0 to 4, which is probably not surprising to many people, record a significantly higher rate of drowning at home swimming pools and make up the majority of those drowning deaths that I mentioned before. However, we also see quite a high rate of drowning in older adults over 65 years of age as well. And obviously how and why people drown in home swimming pools, it varies very significantly depending on the age group. So I'll just go through a few of the key factors for some of the at-risk groups, starting with children. Young children here in WA are at the greatest risk of drowning of any age group, and the home swimming pool is the most common location by far for drowning in the age group. Over the past 5 years, 20 children have drowned and 236 hospitalised following a non-fatal drowning incident. As you can see, majority of them did occur in the Perth metro area, but there is a significant proportion that occurs within regional WA. So they do happen in all communities and all regions throughout the state. And a message that we try to drive home to parents is that they do happen all year round. It's a common misconception that children only drown in summer when it's hot. But as you can see, while spring and summer are the 2 most common times of year for toddlers to drown, there are still a proportion that drown during spring and winter. So maintaining that home pool barrier is important all year round, not just in the warmer months. Something I also wanted to note, recently we had a look into historical data of toddler drowning and noted that since the introduction of mandatory pool inspections here in WA, there's been almost a 60% decrease in the average number of toddler drowning deaths here in WA in home swimming pools, which is significant and something that I think we should be very proud of. When we look at the rate of home pool drowning, it's decreased by 30%. If we look at nationally, it's only decreased by less than 10%. So we're outperforming many of the other states. And one of the big contributing factors is the fact that we have such strict legislation around pool barriers and the mandatory inspections programs. One of the interesting things that we've sort of looked at is where the children drown. Was it at their own home swimming pool where they live, or was it at a different swimming pool? And as you can see, while the majority of drowning deaths occurred at the toddler's usual place of residence, a quarter of them occurred at a swimming pool that wasn't at their house. I know a lot of the complaints and people that we get ringing up about home pool barriers and having to have fences around their pools is we don't have young children, so why do we have to do it? And I'm sure you guys hear that as well. I guess this is really important to drive home that toddlers don't just drown at their own home. They drown at a relative's house. We've had a number of incidents over the last couple of years where they've actually gained access to a neighbour's property who don't have young children, and because that pool fence has been faulty or absent, they've gained access to the pool. So it is really important that all home swimming pools have their fences and barriers in good working order. As Mark mentioned in his video, the most common denominator in child drowning incidents, no matter where they occur, is adequate adult supervision. In majority of the incidents that we see involving young children, the child gained access in that short period of time where parents' supervision may lapse, and this is obviously where having a pool barrier that's in good working condition and well maintained is really important to delay their access to the pool. When we look through the drowning statistics, children most commonly gained access to the pool through a gate that had been propped open, a gate that had not been closed properly because there was an issue with the self-closing or self-latching component of the gate, or through an unsecured door or window. So it's really important that, I guess, we understand how children often gain access to their swimming pools, so that when you guys are out in the field actually doing these barrier inspections, we can educate people about these sorts of things, particularly propping their pool gates open. Oops, wrong one. Another group which I didn't mention but I thought would be interesting is young adults aged 15 to 24 years of age. The home pool is actually a really common place for people this age to drown as well, which I thought was quite surprising when we looked through. When we look at these ones, alcohol was a significant contributing factor, with 60% of incidents and deaths in this age group. People had alcohol in their system. And it's not just a few drinks. The average blood alcohol content was nearly 0.13, which is almost 3 times the legal limit for driving. And from what we know, young people seem to be aware of the dangers associated with drinking and driving, but not so much about drinking and swimming. So that's something that we really need to work hard on. It's also common for young people to undertake unsafe behaviours, which is often a result of their alcohol consumption. Doing breath-held dives, so shallow water blackout is a big issue, and also people jumping into shallow pools and sustaining head and neck injuries is also common. The final group is the older adults, which I get into trouble. I never know what I'm meant to term it as, but older adults seems the most relevant. They also record high rates of drowning in home swimming pools, particularly men who have retired from their work. So they're spending a lot more time around home, and they're commonly recreating around the pool. Often we see that it's actually while they're recreating around the water rather than when they're in the water itself where they drown. Normally they're performing everyday tasks. Cleaning the pool is a really common one, gardening or doing home maintenance. They lose their balance and fall into the water. Again, alcohol was a factor, but the most common contributing factor was the presence of pre-existing medical conditions and the person being alone at the time of the incident, so there wasn't anyone there to respond. I guess many people are unaware of the added risks and the impact that some medical conditions and medications that they're taking at the time can have on their abilities and skills. So I guess I just wanted to go through those 3 sort of age groups just to show you, I guess, the breadth and the type of people that get into trouble around home pools, and how maybe some of the strategies that we use to educate and target these people to be safer varies quite significantly. I'm just going to move on to quickly, before I move on, is there any questions about any of the drowning data or anything that you'd like to know more of? Yes, Mum?
Talk about the drownings for children under the age of 4.
Yes.
What proportion of those are under the age of 3?
Yeah, I don't know the specific numbers, but when you look at home pools, it's majority of children aged 2 to 4. Typically, any child under the age of 1, the most common location for a drowning death is in a bathtub. So offhand, I'm not 100% sure of the stats, but I can certainly...
I remember reading one of your previous reports that focused on a 10-year period.
Yes.
And I think in all the children that drowned in backyard swimming pools, they were all under the age of 3.
Yes.
Which I thought was quite an amazing stat.
It is. And I think, if you're looking at children that are sort of between the ages of 1 and 3 in terms of their abilities and those sorts of things, it is quite startling that it's such a high proportion. There was also a video that was online, I'm sure most of you saw it, around the child over East that gained access to the closed pool fence by climbing up it. So it's another misconception, I guess, that the child's so small that they won't be able to get into the pool. And as you could see in that video, he pulled over, I think it was a chair that was close to the barrier, climbed up, and then monkey climbed up the pool fence and opened it. So children can gain access to water if they really want to, especially that climbable objects, and that'll come out a little bit in this compliance stuff that we've looked at. Alison, were there any questions from webinar? No? Perfect. Yes? Yes, this slideshow now. Yeah, we'll be sending this around to everyone. Sorry for the webinar people, just asking if we can get a copy of the slides for the participants. Yes, we'll be sending it out to all participants after. We've also got some other reports that are on our website that specifically look at toddler drowning in home swimming pools that you're more than welcome to download as well. Perfect. Well, I'll move on now to some data around home pool compliance. So as most of you are aware, Raw Lifesaving conducts home swimming pool inspections on behalf of some local governments in the Perth metropolitan area. And over the past 15 years, we've compiled this data that we've collected during the inspections to have a look at the overall compliance rates, including the compliance at first, second and third inspection, to identify common pool barrier failures, and also to inform future programming and try and see if we can improve what we're currently doing. We're just about to release the most recent report, which has information from July 2011 through to June 2016. In the sample, it included 44,832 inspections for just over 28,000 swimming pools across 14 local government areas in the Perth metro area. It was a significant amount of data for us to enter in, but I thought I'd just present to you some of the key findings that we found from that report. Of the sample included in the report, as you can see from the graph, 64.6% of pools were found compliant at first inspection. We really like this stat because I think it's a very good indication. It can be an indication, I guess, that the barrier has been maintained well between the inspection periods. Of course, we can't be certain. And I guess even if they did get the pool ready for the inspection, it does show that they are aware of the types of things that the barrier needs to have to be compliant. In total, 7.7% of the pools failed at the third inspection and 12.5% were referred back to the council. So the difference in these numbers is due to a number of pools that weren't able to be accessed across the 3 inspections. So they're obviously given back to the council. And also there's a small number of homeowners that dispute the findings that we present after their first or their second inspection as well. This is just a graph that looks across the 14 local government areas that we conducted assessments for. And as you can see, in the red is the percentage of pools that failed at third inspection, and the red is the number of pools that we assessed in each local government area. As you can see, it varies quite significantly between local government areas, and I guess we account for this using a number of factors. One of the main ones is a number of the local governments have a high percentage of new pools. So with more new swimming pools, that means greater compliance. We found that the number of assessments completed impacted on it. So the higher number of pools assessed in an area had a higher proportion of pools passing at first inspection and a lower number that failed at third inspection. But as you can see, all of them were under 20% that failed at third inspection. If we look at the trends over time, this graph shows the compliance at first inspection. So you can see in 2016, 65% were compliant at first inspection, which is we feel is quite good, but obviously there's still room for improvement. You can see that it's the last 2 years are quite consistent, but the 3 reports prior to that the numbers were quite high. We had a much smaller sample size between 1999 and 2007, so that's impacted the percentage of compliance at first inspection. We've also got pools that are now they've aged a lot more. They're older swimming pools now, so that obviously decreases the compliance with a number of maintenance issues. And we've also got some better reporting processes now, which means that some of the data is more reliable as well. This is probably no surprise to you guys, but in total we found just over 13,000 barrier faults, with the most common issues being that the gate wasn't self-closing and or self-latching, that there were climbable objects or structures near the barrier, or that the windows weren't childproof. But you can see, obviously, the split of all of those barrier faults. And I guess when I was speaking before about the common access points for children getting into the pools, the self-closing, self-latching of the gate is a main one, and that's where we most commonly see the faults. We're just finalising this report at the moment, so we'll be able to send out a copy to all of you as well within the next couple of weeks. Are there any questions about the compliance report data? Alison, anyone on the webinar? No? Great. Well, we're just going to have a little short break now. So if I can just remind you about writing down your thoughts and comments and things like that around, I'll put up actually the first slide so that you can remember the areas that we're looking at. So around how we can better engage with the homeowner, how we can improve the actual delivery of quality inspection programs, and how we can better engage with our stakeholders. We'll just have about a 5-minute break and then we'll come back. So feel free to grab tea and coffee and snacks for anyone who's in the room. Otherwise... Hi. Sure. Yes. So I was like, re-engagement. Yes. So between the first inspection and the third inspection, it was less than 48 hours. Second inspection, first inspection, second inspection, no, it was non-compliant. Third, non-compliant, 3 hours. So within 48 hours. So I was like, yeah. So I was like, when you oh, sorry, you just go back into reception. There's a bathrooms are just on the right hand side. So yeah, so I was like, when you're saying.
It's hard for you to say this. It talks about things like regulations, background scenarios in there. So the website is
Hey everyone, we might just get started again so we can get you out of here. Apologies, you have to listen to me for just a little bit longer. The next sort of section I just wanted to chat to you about was some of the programs, I guess, that we have at Raw Lifesaving and some of the ways that we might be able to add value to the current services that we're providing as part of these barrier inspections. As I've talked about already today, eliminating toddler drowning is probably one of the greatest challenges that we face in terms of home swimming pool safety and drowning. And we really need all key stakeholders to be fully aligned and integrated if needed, redesigned to ensure that we have a really big impact on the community. We at Raw Lifesaving believe that every home pool owner should be a lifesaver. They should have the knowledge and skills to keep themselves and their families safe, and also have the skills to save a life, especially those homes where they have young children. As in most cases, the parent is the first person to respond in an emergency situation, so it's really important that they have the skills and know what to do. I guess as pool inspectors, you guys are in a really unique position where you have direct contact with one of our high-risk user groups on a day-to-day basis, and I guess there's a really great opportunity to develop and implement strategies to change behaviour and provide targeted education messages that are specific to the home pool owner. Our key program that we promote for toddler drowning prevention is the Keep Watch program. It was established in 1996 following a year where we saw 16 toddlers drown over a 12-month period here in WA. It targets parents who have young children under the age of 4 and promotes the 4 key messages that I've got up on the slide there. Obviously, the most important one that we promote is direct adult supervision at all times when children are around the water. But obviously parents can't supervise children 24 hours a day, every minute of the day. So it's really important that the secondary barriers are in place to prevent those children from gaining access to the water. So obviously where you guys come in, preventing access to water at all times through well-maintained pool barriers, teaching the child to be water confident and knowing how to respond in a situation, and learning CPR. The way that the program is delivered at the moment, we have a really strong media and advertising campaign. Our current campaign at the moment is called This Much. Some of you may have seen it on TV or on social media, where we've got a range of Perth celebrities, or personalities as they tell me they are now, who volunteered their time to be part of the TV ad, and it really promotes, I guess, the message that children, it only takes a small amount of water for children to drown, and we term it this much. So as much water to cover their mouth and nose can be potentially hazardous. So that's the main message that we're trying to get across with our mass media campaigns. It's aired throughout the state on TV. We did have some radio advertising, but majority of our efforts are around social media and getting the message out that way. We've had a really good response to the media campaign from the community. They really like the simple message, and it's telling people something that they didn't know before. We also go out to, I guess, community centres. We go out to parent groups and chat to parents about how they can make their home safer. A big component of that is about how to maintain their pool barrier. We have pool safety checklists, which are over here, that we hand out and go through with them in quite a bit of detail if they have a home swimming pool, and really try to arm them with the skills so that they can actually perform that maintenance across the year between their inspections ongoing, so that it remains compliant and safe. We also head out to childcare centres to conduct children's water safety talks with our Dippy Duck, who has a song and dance that's very entertaining for the kids. We also work really closely with child health nurses and other child health professionals to educate them around toddler drowning and home pool safety, so that they can then pass that information on to their clients and customers. We also run a series of Heartbeat Club first aid courses. If you're not aware of these, they're 3-hour condensed first aid courses specifically designed for parents who have young children. It focuses primarily on the injuries that they would expect to see in a young child: burns, scalds, poisoning, falls, and also drowning prevention. And we have a range of resources that we distribute as part of that as well. As I mentioned, we've got a home pool safety checklist, which we distribute to parents that have home swimming pools. We've, in partnership with Spas of WA, have these available at all of the swimming pool and spa WA membership businesses throughout the metro area. And every summer we do a promotion about making this weekend your home pool safety weekend. So we work really closely with the suppliers and providers of pool equipment and chemicals to really push this message home as well. As I mentioned, the This Much campaign, we've got a range of videos around that. And specifically with Keep Watch resources, we've got CPR fridge magnets, information brochures, rubber ducks, CPR charts, and we've actually translated a lot of resources into culturally specific water safety resources for around the home and in the community as well. These resources are available to everyone, and we've found them a really useful tool to have with our pool inspectors out on the road, so that if they are doing an inspection at a house that has young children, they have that information available to pass on to the homeowner. So what can we do? I thought I'd share with you some of our experiences, and Eddie can correct me if I'm wrong. He's out there every day doing these inspections. For one local government area, we worked with them to provide every home pool owner with a safety CPR chart during their assessments. Really provided us with a great opportunity to engage with the home pool owner and discuss these important water safety and drowning prevention messages. It also enabled ongoing education and awareness for those home pool owners because the signage was displayed at their swimming pool ongoing. It was a very simple and very easy strategy to implement, and it had the potential to make a really big difference. We had some great feedback from home pool owners within this local government area, and it was just a nice way to engage with them and provide them something additional with their pool inspection. We've also worked with a number of other local governments to expand the pool assessment program and really provide that targeted water safety and drowning prevention resources and information which is specific to the homeowner. So, for example, we did up toddler drowning prevention packs, which included a range of educational and a few promotional resources that their pool inspectors could provide to families that had young children while they were doing their inspection. Other things that we've trialled in a few areas is we've offered discounted first aid for home pool owners and run specific courses within their local government area, easy to access, close to home, and they're getting it at a discounted rate. We've also offered modified first aid courses, so they don't have to go through the full 2 or 3 day senior first aid course. We offer the sort of 3 to 4 hour courses as well, with creche facilities in conjunction with local councils. Often the local councils have donated space at their within their local government area, and also offered creche facilities free of charge as well, which encourages a lot of those younger families to come along. We've also run general promotions and advertising through local community newspapers in council advertising space, which again reduce the cost, but also we've done some promotions through community groups that engage with particularly parents that have young children, so that we can really get that broader awareness of home pool safety rather than just getting it from one point. I guess we've also come up with a few other sort of ideas and opportunities that, you know, I'm sure you guys have done your own things within your local government area in delivering additional services, and have ideas on sort of what works best to add value to these services that we currently provide. One of the things we've been looking at doing is providing incentives for pools that are compliant at first assessment. It's not one that we've actually trialled yet. We're still working on how that would exactly work. But I'm sure that you guys all have really great ideas on what we could do. And I think what we've learned over our experience in implementing these in a few selected local government areas that we're interested is that we actually have a really big impact. We have a lot of parents and homeowners that respond to these types of programs and actually contact us to say how great it was to engage with the pool assessor and get extra information off them about how to be safe as well. Obviously not everyone wanted the information, and that was fine, but it was just really great for the assessors to have it handy so that if they were engaged in that conversation, not only did they have the information to pass on, but they could also leave those with them when they left, to create that sort of ongoing education and awareness. So really encourage you guys to, think about what you can do in terms of adding value to the current programs that you're doing, and if there's anything that Raw Lifesaving can help with in terms of providing you with the resources or sourcing those sorts of first aid type courses, you can certainly let us know. Has anyone else done any additional type programs within their sorts of area? No? Fabulous. I was going to go on now to how, I'm going on to Martin now. He's going to come up and talk to you about some of the changes to the Australian standards and the new rules for pools.
How do I change the slides? Just
click this one.
Okay.
Okay, so if you just click the mouse pad, it should go across for you.
Great.
No problems.
No, thanks.
Oh, sorry. No, you're right.
Hi everyone, my name's Martin. I'm the Senior Technical Officer at the Building Commission. I'm primarily responsible for the swimming pool program in various capacities. I was involved in the drafting of the Rules for Pools brochure, the pool inspector guidelines, and also various other kind of industry bulletins that you've probably had a look at and seen. I try to get around every so often to see people as I'm kind of invited. So please keep those invitations coming. I like to come out and see people and talk to them about how they're going with their pool inspection program. And also, I'm always available on the phone as well. If people have any specific queries, I might be able to help you. We generally only provide general advice, but I'm still able to help where I can. I'd like to thank the Royal Lifesaving Society for inviting me to come along today. We don't always get invited to these kind of events, and it's a pleasure when we do, because we look forward to the opportunity to talk to you, but more so, we look forward to the opportunity to receive your feedback, how we can change, what could be done better. In putting together this presentation today, I guess it was always going to be a bit of a struggle talking about what I was asked to talk about within 15 minutes, so I'm not going to go into a lot of depth. It's going to be a brief summary. Your best bet is really, as pool inspectors, to be aware of this pool inspector guideline document. It's very good. I've had tremendous feedback about it, and it will answer a lot of your questions that you might have. A lot of the time when I take phone calls, I direct people to this document, and it answers their question for them. Okay, so back in 2012, the Council of Australian Governments, which is called COAG, signed an intergovernmental agreement. Now that involved various state and territory governments, and essentially the intergovernmental agreement, or the IGA, was all about reducing the number of variations in the building code, or that was a significant portion of what it was about anyway. The idea being is that we have this uniform national construction code that doesn't have all these variations in different places, because why have a national construction code if everyone's doing it differently? So in BCA 2016, we got rid of our last variation, which is for swimming pools, which is why now we use the Australian Standard 1926.1 2012 edition, as referenced by the Building Code. So the new regulations came into effect on the 1st of May 2016. Essentially, for new pools from that date, they had to comply with the Building Code. The Building Code has a number of ways that you can achieve compliance. You can achieve compliance through the performance requirements through a performance solution, or you can satisfy those performance requirements via a deemed to satisfy solution. Now, the deemed to satisfy solution is complying with the Australian Standard 1926.1 2012 edition, as well as the 1926.2 2007 edition, including Amendments 1 and 2. For the old swimming pools, they were able to really just keep on continuing complying with the 1993 standard and the requirements directly out of the regulations. But they do have the option of complying with those new requirements as well. We didn't want to prevent people from upskilling, or sorry, not upskilling, but improving compliance. So the Australian Standard 1926.1 2012, there's a lot of similarities between the 2012 edition and the 1993 edition, and there's also a lot of differences. Probably one of the primary, one of the things that hasn't changed is the fact that it's all about having a safety barrier that's child resistant, not child proof. We're not electrifying fences. We're not creating, we're not creating fences that have razors on them to prevent children from getting in. It's not about that. This thing is just a preventative measure. The focus is always on supervision, and the pool fence aids that. The 2012 edition, much like the 1993, requires barriers to be permanent structures. Permanent structures within this standard is actually defined as well. The minimum barrier height is 1.2 metres for an unclimbable barrier. The minimum barrier height for a climbable barrier is 1.8 metres. Now, under the old standard, it was 2.4 metres, or you could have 1.8 with a taper at the top. Under the 1993 standard, we had a 1.2 metre clear span that you couldn't have any climbable objects in. That's different. In 2012, that's been replaced with a series of non-climbable zones. Now, non-climbable zone 1 to 4, as you can see on the screen, are used for barriers that are less than 1.8 metres in height. And non-climbable zone 5 is for boundary barriers. If you have a look at these diagrams, non-climbable zone 1 is obviously a plane. So that's a 900 millimetre span where you can't have any indentations, projections, gaps more than 10 millimetres that a child could otherwise stand on to help them climb over the fence. Non-climbable zone 2 aligns with non-climbable zone 1, and it's a 900 millimetre quadrant. Again, you can't have any objects that a child's going to be able to stand on to gain access into the pool area. Non-climbable zone 3 is a bit of a funny one. It actually extends above non-climbable zone 2. And essentially, again, you can't have anything climbable in there. Now, unfortunately, we do see from time to time people have PowerPoints on walls up nice and high or other kind of objects, and that renders the barrier non-complying with DTS. It doesn't necessarily render it non-complying with performance. Non-climbable zone 4 is on the inside of a pool barrier. Now, that one applies where you have gaps exceeding 10 millimetres, where a child might be able to reach their foot through the fence and be able to step on something from the inside to be able to help them climb over the fence. And the final one there is non-climbable zone 5, which is applicable to boundary barriers. So boundary barriers are required to be 1.8 metres high as measured on the pool side. The top half of that barrier, the top 900 millimetres, needs to be unclimbable, and that's dealt with via a non-climbable zone 5. It's a 900 millimetre quadrant. The neighbour's side, because you can't control what occurs on the neighbour's side, is permitted to be climbable and of any height.
Martin, so can I just ask a question?
We'll leave it to the end. We'll leave it to the end. I might answer what you're going to say, maybe. So publications, kind of what we've produced. We've got rules for pools, which I think you're all aware of. The target audience for that is really pool industry, but then also your mums and dads out there primarily. We've got the pool inspector guidelines, which is really aimed at you guys as well as building surveyors out there. And we've got various industry bulletins. Now, these industry bulletins, sometimes people tell me they don't get them, and there's no reason why you shouldn't get them. If you're a registered contractor, such as a builder or a building surveyor, you'll automatically get them emailed to you. Most of you probably are not a registered builder or building surveyor, but you can actually go onto the Building Commission website. If you follow the various links there, there's a button called Keep Informed. You can type in your details and you'll get all those kind of same emails that builders and building surveyors get. So you'll always be up to date with the latest industry bulletins as they're released. We're currently working on an industry bulletin clarifying boundary barrier requirements. You probably noticed in one of the previous slides there, the boundary barrier diagram looked a little bit different to probably how you've otherwise seen it. That's, I suppose, because we're working on this process or on this bulletin that hopefully will help create consistency throughout the industry. I know it's been the source of much debate. There's been industry groups lobbying local governments directly, but at the end of the day, it's always the responsibility of the permit authority to interpret how they interpret and apply how they interpret. But if we can achieve consistency, it goes a long way to dismissing frustrations throughout the industry. So common issues. There's two common issues I wanted to talk about today. The first one being front fences and also walls that abut public open spaces. Now, the standard details that a boundary barrier needs to be at least 1.8 metres high, measured on the pool side. In this example, we've got a quite substantial retaining wall. There's a swimming pool above, and then we've obviously got some non-compliant boundary barrier fencing on top. It's not 1.8 metres high. It's got some rails that make it non-climbable as well. I guess when you have a look at it, it's non-compliant with the standard. Is it compliant with the building code performance provisions? It very well may be. In order to ascertain that, you really need to get a building surveyor involved. A registered building surveyor can have a look at this. He can draw up a performance solution, and then he can run it by the local government. Now, local governments don't have to agree with these performance solutions. They can just flat out reject them, and they're able to do that. But they have to at least consider them. The regulations give them I suppose, the ultimate power in that they don't have to blindly accept what the building surveyor otherwise says, but they can't flat out reject them without even considering them. There are certainly many circumstances out there, including one like this, where performance solutions might be quite workable and solve a lot of problems that are otherwise reflected through the standard. Boundary barriers. Now, this one has been the source of a lot of debate. I've already talked about a little bit about this. I'm going to preempt my industry bulletin and talk to you a little bit about kind of our thoughts on boundary barriers. I guess when we look at boundary barriers, there is that requirement for them to be 1.8 metres high as you measure them on the pool side. The outside is allowed to be climbable, so a child can climb to the top of a boundary barrier on the neighbour's side, and that's okay. They can't climb down the boundary barrier because non-climbable zone 5 has removed any kind of footholds or objects that are going to help them to be able to climb down. I think one of the important things when you read through the standard is the distinction that there has to be a 1.8 metre height for this boundary barrier on the pool side. I don't think that's never been in contention. When you measure a boundary barrier, that 1.8 metres, as the standard details through its diagrams, you take it from the finished ground level. And the finished ground level is actually defined in the standard. It talks about, and don't quote me, but roughly the finished surface adjoining the fence, but also any other permanent stable surface. So if I have a raised deck or a retaining wall or a brick planter box, and it's under non-climbable zone 5, is that going to reduce the 1.8 metre height? Yes, it's going to reduce the 1.8 metre height. So is that compliant? No. How do you control it? How far away do you go with any kind of structure under non-climbable zone 5 to be able to control this 1.8 metre height? For that, I think it's good to look at what the purpose is of that 1.8 metre height. I've already said a child can climb up the outside of the barrier, and that's okay. I've already said a child can't climb down because of non-climbable zone 5. So really the only way that a child would probably gain access via this method would be to drop down or fall. Now, why did standards pick 1.8 metres? I don't know. But 1.8 metres is a pretty good disincentive for a young child to drop into a pool area. It's a big fall. If you reduce the impact of that fall by allowing a timber deck that's 900 high, you're not satisfying the standard. You're not satisfying the 1.8 metre height, and Subject of some debate, you're not satisfying clause 2.3.1. Now, the Building Commission's view is that the 500 millimetres that applies to barriers in clause 231 should also apply to boundary barriers. There's a lot of rationale behind that. But even if you take that away, you've still got to be able to maintain that 1.8 metre height. And there's no other way to do it unless you apply something to that circumstance. In looking at the various options available, the Building Commission, or namely me, contacted various other states and territories. New South Wales have a very, very firm view on this, and they say that 500 millimetres applies to boundary barriers. Victoria haven't published anything, but in talking to a senior manager there who's the kind of the equivalent of Nabil Yazdani at our Building Commission, he confirmed that their view reflects exactly the same as New South Wales. Then there's Queensland. Now, Queensland used the 2007 edition of the standard, but it's quite similar in that it has a non-climbable zone and it's still 1.8 metres high. And their view was that there wasn't a 500 millimetres because that's not in that standard, but instead they simply say that you can't have anything that reduces the effective height. And they released some advice from their Pool Safety Council back in 2012 that explores it in a lot of depth. It talks about different objects that might be okay and other objects that are not okay. So that's where we're at. Now, hopefully that industry bulletin will get out in the next couple of weeks. It does need to go by our technical advisory group first, and we'll see what comments we get back from them. But hopefully that gives you a bit more background in terms of boundary barriers. While I might not have answers, you're welcome to ask questions. Yes?
Will you be amending the standard and the guidelines to reflect that non-climbable zone?
We're not responsible for the standard, but we will be amending the rules of pools and we'll be amending the pool inspector guidelines.
The guidelines clearly state the bottom 900 mil of that fence can be climbable.
That's right, and it can be. The bottom of the fence can be climbable. We're not talking about the climbability of the fence. We're talking about permanent stable surfaces that is going to facilitate or reduce the 1.8 metre fall. Now, if you've got a climbable rail on the bottom of that fence, that's not going to help a child fall into a pool area or be any kind of disincentive. But if I've got a timber deck or a brick planter box, something like that, that will. Now, when you look at other kinds of objects, if there's possibly even a pump and a filter, if it's kind of a complex surface and it's not going to help a child drop down, then that might be okay.
I guess
But
scary thing, Martin, is the word might.
well, that's right.
Really cool, you got it, mate.
And now you've got to understand the Building Commission are not responsible for this standard. We interpret. There's a lot of stuff that we put into rules of pools and our pool inspector guidelines that are not in that standard, and everybody is fine with it and they all follow it. This one, unfortunately, we didn't address in enough detail at the time. If you look at what the rules of pools and the pool inspector guidelines says, it says that you have to have that 1.8 metre height. We just didn't blatantly go out there and say you have to apply 500 millimetres in this circumstance. Any other questions? Yep.
Yeah, man, come up and just bring that last slide up.
How do I do that? Yeah.
Hi everybody, Dan Cox here, Welcome Building Compliance Officer. We've often come across, so these 10 mil things can be there on this side?
Yeah.
In that area, so yeah, okay. These are the buttons showing for those that are listening on the new diagram. What we also have, we've had that pool within the 500 as well. Is we intended to fall onto a hard surface, or is that not defined? Because if we have pool equipment here and we've got them to put a roof out to extend the boundary so they've still got the 1.8 drop, so they're not dropping onto any pool equipment or a significant surface, that sometimes pushes it out onto this. Sometimes we'll have a fountain there and ask them to do that, or 60 degree, but then that pushes them out then again out into a water surface. The question is, will it be defined or clarified that it's got to be a hard surface rather than maybe the pool's actually encroaching in that 500, or they've made it encroach by putting a roof across the top to kind of extend that 1.8 drop for a child from there to cause them some damage but no drowning. Thank you.
One of the funny things about this IGA that the state government signed up to is that we're removing variations. We're not creating standards, and we're not we'll interpret standards and we'll provide guidelines and we'll try and fill the gaps where there are gaps. And there was a fair few gaps in this standard. There was also errors in the standard. And one was significant, which was the where you have a diagonal brace in a fence or in a gate having 100 millimetres or having 10 millimetres. Now, the 1993 standard said 10 millimetres. This standard said 100 millimetres. Now, we thought that was an error. We contacted standards and had a chat about it. And yes, it was an error. So we amended the regulations. That's regulation 15A. So that overrides that section of the standard. So it's 10 millimetres. But when we viewed these other kind of issues, they weren't errors. So we couldn't do anything about them. What we can do is provide interpretation and guidance. How local governments follow that is we hope that local governments are consistent and take a consistent approach to it. But we can't enforce that. We have no powers over local government, and we have no ability to be able to change standards. So in terms of, is it okay to have a swimming pool hard up against the fence or not? I don't know. I don't have an answer for you in that regard.
Is the intent that 1.8 drop will either cause some physical harm or brain injury to that child that they can't make it to the pool?
No, it's to create a disincentive. Yeah. So it's not about the impact and the damage that might do. It's about a child gaining access or dropping in. It's the perceived fall. That's right. And look, I guess, and you might have heard me mention to Lauren before that one of the previous drowning reports that Royal Lifesaving produced said something along, it was based around a 10-year view, and it said something along the lines of that the children that drowned in backyard swimming pools under the age of 5 were all under the age of 3. Now, I think that's important in context. But it also went on to say that I think it was around about 90% of the drownings that occurred that they looked at, if it was an access issue, the access was around, over, through or under the gate. There really is not very much evidence of children drowning after getting access via a boundary barrier. It's a shame that this standard causes so much confusion in regards to boundary barriers, because it probably should not really be our focus. Our focus should be on gates. But because of the amount of inconsistency out there, we need to address it. And from a state government point of view, if we've got 3 other state governments that are all taking a similar view, then it's probably the right view.
Any questions for webinar?
How often should private pool inspections be done?
Can you just repeat the question as well so that I can...
Yep, so how often should private swimming pool inspections be done? The local government is required to inspect so that a period of 4 years does not lapse between inspections. But that's only valid in areas that need to be inspected as defined in the regulations. There are some areas that are exempt from those inspections. It should be noted that they're not exempt from having a barrier. They're just exempt from having inspections. Eddie?
Just a point of clarification. Can we still apply the compliance for boundary barriers, the new standard, either side?
No.
No, either side's got, but it's still applicable to the...
It's still applicable to the old pools, yeah. Either side can comply, that's right.
Under the new standard, you have to get compliance on the inside that common road.
Only the inside.
Irrespective of whether you've got a clear drop on the other side, clearly at 1.8 metres.
Yeah. And look, again, what we're talking about is compliant with the Denver Satisfy provisions of the building code, which references this standard. There is performance. So if there are circumstances that are just plain silly, and I've seen a lot of them, have a chat to the building surveyor, have a chat to the permit authority or the local government and see whether they are happy to explore a performance solution. There have been reports of some permit authorities refusing to even consider performance solutions because they consider it high risk. I think that's really unfair. I think that each one needs to be based on its merits. There will certainly be circumstances, and probably many of them, where the local government will not be comfortable with what's proposed, and that's fair enough. But if I've got a 4 metre high retaining wall that's flat, and then there's a 1.8 metre high fence on top, and the only reason this fence doesn't comply is because the liquid limestone pool is a little bit too high and you've got 1750 instead of 1800, I think that's a pretty good case for a performance solution. There's no way a kid's going to climb over a 4 metre high retaining wall, over a 1.8 metre fence, drop down 1.75 into a pool area, and they're most likely going to be under the age of 3. It's a non-event as far as I'm concerned, and permanent authorities need to be able to be flexible enough to look at each case on its merits.
Another question from the webinar. Can you provide examples of performance solutions they are unsure?
No. We're not a permanent authority, so we don't see them. And look, I don't know whether there have been performance solutions that have been assessed. I know there's a lot of stories about Mandurah looking at... Yeah, there's a lot of stories about Mandurah looking at performance solutions for boundary barriers, I think specifically, and I think more so maybe front barriers, I'm not sure. Have a chat to Mandurah, they might be able to help. Sorry, Mandurah. All right, thanks for your time. Thank you, Lauren. Oh, okay, yep. Sorry, I can't quite hear. I don't know. I suppose I have the luxury of not being the pool inspector out there making the call. If you see an object or a surface that is going to reduce the effectiveness of that 1.8 metres, then in my view, it's a non-compliance. Yeah, and look, I can't give you a list of objects that are okay and a list of objects that are not okay. That's not what the Building Commission does. This industry bulletin that we're proposing to release will hopefully go a long way to answering some of those questions, but it's not going to be conclusive. I mean, it'll go a long way and it'll provide assistance, and that's about as good as you're going to get. Thanks for your help. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mark. The last person we're going to have come up and speak to is Greg Tate. He's from the Royal Life Saving Society. I'm just going to bring up the PowerPoint slides. He's going to be talking about some of our pool inspection programs that we run here through Royal Life Saving and some of the new information about our app that we're using as well. You can come up. They've just got to do some stuff with the... I'll work that later.
So I just press any key to move it along?
All the keypad. Just press that.
Thank you, Lauren. I'll get started. Look, it's great to see so many motivated people in the room. Ultimately, from Royal Life Saving's perspective, the people in the field are real ambassadors for drowning prevention. And that's why Royal Life Saving first got involved in this pool inspection process. We've been inspecting pools for over 20 years. We believe we've learnt a lot through that process and streamlined what we do and how we do it, and we're here to help. So we'd like to assist any local government out there with our systems and operations and what we do and what we've learnt throughout that process. The local government has been undertaking barrier assessments in WA since 1991. There has been changes to the standards since then, and some states require barriers to be checked when the property changes hands. But WA is still the only state and or territory to implement a mandatory 4-year program delivered by local government. It was just mentioned in one of the webinar questions. How the delivery of 4-yearly inspections is delivered has changed over the last 25 years. I would like to present some information on elements that Royal Life Saving has developed, and would be more than happy to collaborate with you to implement this in your local area. So you clearly don't press any key, you've got to press an arrow there.
On the mouse pad, just click on that.
The mouse pad.
Why is that not working? Okay, keep talking and I'll move it across for you.
Okay.
Not sure why it's doing that. Let me know when you want to swap to the next one.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren. Royal Life Saving has developed a coordinated approach to contacting the homeowner, if necessary, on numerous occasions using a variety of contact media, mail, phone, email, etc. The reason this is useful being better planning saves time overall, reduces but not totally avoids effort lost due to visiting a property and being able to gain access. Property is becoming more secure, as you people would understand being out in the field on a regular basis. And we believe this enhances the customer service as homeowners have an increasing preference to be present during the home assessment. The most common approach uses the following. The first contact includes an introductory letter to explain legislative requirements and request the occupier to contact Rural Life Saving anytime, 24/7, within 7 days to book an assessment. And we also provide a handout about barrier safety compliance. The second contact, after 7 days, a second letter is sent requesting the occupier contacts RLSSWA within 4 days to book an assessment, along with a handout about barrier safety compliance. Where the information exists, which is increasingly the case in local government, Rural Life Saving have the ability to integrate contact via phone or email to obtain the booking. We're fortunate that we have 2 call centres that operate 24/7 that are based in Manjimup up in Bridgetown. So that's certainly a service that we'd be happy to share and discuss with other local governments that they could access and use. The inspectors also receive basic Q&A about barrier requirements and the ability to send helpful information. And through this experience, we've found typically 65 to 70% of home pool owners utilise a booking service, which means they're at home. So that, we believe, is about customer service technique or method, but from Rural Life Saving's point of view, it also gives us the opportunity to educate them about drowning prevention, which is the whole motivation for us being involved in this service over 20 years ago. Slide 3, please, Lauren.
Oh, it's not working now.
It's important that the communications are fully supported by barrier assessors. To do this, Rural Life Saving develops geographically clustered or zones of pools to match the capacity and or availability of the designated assessor to the prescribed inspection timeframe. Typically, we plan to conduct up to 3 inspections over a 30-day period. There is no point mailing or contacting too many residents at once, including being able to cope with the expected level of inbound phone calls. Pools are grouped by geographical locations. This minimises time lost due to travel between suburbs. And you can see the diagram and how that sort of is coordinated over a 6-week period and sort of peaks with a maximum of 80 assessments in that 1 week. Next slide, please, Lauren. Rural Life Saving has developed a technology backbone and in-field inspection app that has a range of features that could be of assistance to local governments like yours. The high-level features are, the app contains a live calendar of appointments. This is a combination of appointments created by the call centre and also follow-up appointments created by the inspector in the field for second and third inspections. For quality, a structured assessment tool ensuring all elements are assessed and checked by the assessor. Only when all these elements are touched can a report be produced. So you've actually got to go through and click on the smiley face or the sad face. So it's interesting technique we've used there with some of the customers you might come across in the field, but you have to touch every one to actually allow the ICT process to continue. So with all the checklist elements, there are 3 sub-elements. A series of standardised statements ensuring quality in the communication of the fault report provided to the homeowner, the ability to take a relevant photo or video, and also the ability for the inspector to check. The ability of the inspector to check the relevant sections and extracts from the Australian standards. This all exists within the app and is only a click away as you're going through that inspection process. The app provides the ability for the inspector to reschedule a meeting with the home pool owner. There is also a comments section where the inspector can include unusual or unexpected information. Not yet, Lauren. All the activities of the inspector and call centre are integrated into a database where all pools are recorded with a unique ID for the purposes of resolution tracking. Each are categorised and retrievable using multiple criteria, including the local government reference number, address, structure type, barrier type, and contact person. An important element is the complete recording of what we call the contact history. This is where all contacts with the homeowner are consolidated, whether by mail, phone call, face-to-face meeting, and any other examples you may have. This is also where the dates of each physical inspection took place. Obviously, that can be of importance if it ever goes to a legal, through a legal process, that you've got a record of every contact and every process that took place during the inspection. All assessment reports are secured and filed and archived, and then you can pull comprehensive reports from this database through exports that take place at specified times for monthly invoicing in a downloadable file, PDF type document. So next one, please, Lauren. Okay, this last slide refers to training and PD, which is inclusive of what we're all here to doing today, and it's great to see, as I mentioned before, so many motivated individuals to learn and understand and network. With over 150,000 pools in WA, at a minimum of 30,000 plus pools need to be inspected every year. Assuming each one takes 20 minutes, there is just under 10,000 hours of work, or more than 265 FTEs actually providing inspections each year. So, should there be entry-level training? Is there value in having entry-level training? Currently, Rural Lifesaving trainings consists of the role of the inspector, understanding the regulations and standards for swimming pool barriers, a risk assessment on the barrier and facility analysis together with maintenance and compliance issues, completing the inspection, recording results, accident prevention, supervision and recognition, emergency intervention, public relations and public education, conflict resolution, and safe home swimming pool operation. Assessors also complete a practical induction that includes a minimum of 50 inspections with a qualified and experienced mentor, or until the mentor is confident the trainee is competent, whichever is the greatest. So that's what we do, and I'm sure you guys do some great stuff with your local governments as well. So that pretty much concludes what I was hoping to present to all of you today, but I'm happy to open up to some questions, with the preference that I haven't been directly involved with this program for many years. So
Eddie's here as well, if there's any
yeah, Eddie's a home pool inspector, but I'm happy to.
I think Alison's got one from the webinar.
Question from the webinar.
If you can just repeat the question.
Firstly, is that app available to local governments? And also, does it account for the different versions? For example, pre-11, 2001, pre-May 2016, etc.
Do you want to come up here?
Do you want me to repeat the question? I think that's yes and yes, isn't it, Eddie?
So just repeat the question.
Yeah.
So you want to know whether the app is available to local government first, and secondly, you want to know whether it has the different categories of years and dates. It does. Yep, definitely.
Eddie, do you want to? Is there anything you need to add?
Yeah, no.
You just need to speak into the microphone so that.
Look, we're just in the process now of updating our app now to take into account the absolutely new post May 16 regulations. We're hopefully have that on board in our current app probably in the next month or so. We're just doing that through our IT networks through our national brand. So yes, it is happening, and it will be available for local councils to utilise in the future. But we're still actually refining the actual app itself. But we're pretty close, and it is very beneficial with the way the inspections are done now.
So
Question?
Eddie told us that it's not available to local governments.
Well, we're going to make it available.
Yeah, that's our
There may
process.
be a cost associated.
I don't know how long. There'll be a cost associated with it. I don't know how long ago you asked, Andrew. It's probably in the refinement process at that stage. But as Eddie's mentioned, we're very close to. We want to make sure we've got a product that works. So we've had our inspectors out in the field using it for over a year now, a couple of years now. So we want to make sure it's right before we provide it to anyone else. And we're confident it is, and we're confident it'll save you time, energy, and money. Yes.
On the entry-level training, obviously we all know that there is no training package out there that most councils run. It's mostly run, in my experience, across 4 different councils peer-to-peer or with a building surveyor. Would Rural Lifesaving be offering a corporate version of your entry-level that you currently use in-house to train. I know it's probably against because you like our work as well.
No, look, I'll take that. We're happy to provide local pool inspection services if local governments don't have the need or want to do it. So we're not here to. But what we've got here is a variety of services that you can choose and pick. Like if you've got great inspectors in the field, you might just want to use our app. You might want to use our 24/7 call centre. So your inspectors are actually getting more information and access to better information about the alignment of how they inspect and when they inspect. So we're not here to take services from people out in the field. We're here to integrate and help and assist. And in some instances, that means providing the service for the whole service for the local government. In other instances, it might just be our 24/7. In other instances, it might be Lauren's team provides you with some drowning prevention information that you give out when you're in the field. So there's that range of services that we can provide. Sorry, and
I think where I'm getting at is that, like, some of the states are registered pool surveyors and they actually have to do a course or pay extra amount of money. We don't have that here at all anywhere.
Yep.
So I'm asking you, would you consider actually something like this where you put it out to all the councils? Would you like to pay X amount? Come and do our training course tailored. Obviously, you can't do the supervision element of it. Tailored to get somebody to have a record of achievement or something. So when you are standing up in a, hopefully not in court or a coroner's court, you can say, are you competent? Are you professional? Yeah, this is about as good as it gets because that's all we're told.
yes, definitely. But we'd need the support of local government. I mean, I've been with Rural Life Saving for over 20 years. I was initially involved when we first started this inspection process. I've moved on to other projects and services that we deliver, so I'm not as involved anymore. But I investigated that 20 years ago, and we need to have a market for it. There needs to be people interested in doing it. And I guess through the statistics that I presented today about the 260 odd FTEs that should be required to do the required legislative requirement, there should be a market for it. So yes, we are interested in providing that service.
Can you just repeat what the service is for the people over their work?
It's basically a training program, some form of training program. So I guess what we're here to see if there's a demonstrated need, yes, we'd love to help and have that service in place. And I think most people will recognise that there is a need. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one question. I'm not sure who this one's for though. Someone has asked whether Royal Surf Life Saving has talked to the Building Commission's Building Data Project team as to whether the app can be used to provide the Commission with the stats.
I haven't been involved in that process, but I haven't been directly involved in this process for quite a few years. Do you know?
I can turn it around.
So the Building Commission, the Act and the regulations have provisions that involve collecting data for building permits, not for pool inspections. So I'm not aware of the Building Commission. While we are interested in those kind of stats, there's no project that I'm aware of in terms of collecting those kind of stats.
But I think Lauren, we certainly create a lot of data, and Lauren's been using a lot of the data in her reports to show compliance levels, how they vary from first to second and third inspections, and that shows the overall benefit of what everyone in this room does and how you can get a high compliance rate if you're doing regular inspections. So we certainly do research reports on that and use the data for that, and that research is accessible by everyone.
Any other questions of anything that's been presented today, or any last comments or feedback? No, thanks, Dave.
Thanks very much.
Great, well that's the end of today's workshop. So again, thank you to everyone for coming. I hope that it was of value to you and you've got some new information to take back with you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us and we can send through any additional information. We'll send through the PowerPoint slides to everyone so that you'll have those as well. So thank you again and enjoy the rest of your week.